Hello, hello. It is I, Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This one is possibly the beginning of a series of videos I might do where I share with you some of the many books on the art of comics that I've collected. And this time around, I thought it would be fun. I was in the mood to look at Enemy Ace, the artist's edition. It's almost all Joe. They call it Joe Kubert's artist Enemy Ace Artist Edition. There is one piece by Russ Heath in here. As a kid, I was fascinated by Enemy Ace. It's probably the only military comic that I had a particular interest in. It was very dramatic and it was all about honor and everything. Anyway, this is published by IDW. The editor, Scott Dumbier, who has done this whole series of artist editions, has moved on and started his own company. So perhaps we'll see more artist editions through the Scott Dumbier imprint. I can't remember what his company was going to be called. I don't. They haven't started publishing yet. But as you may or may not know, everything in here are full color photographs of the original black and white pages. So you see the yellowed paper, you'll see corrections or whatever else is you would see if you owned the original piece of art. And it's kind of amazing they were able to track down um, a whole bunch of full Enemy Ace stories for this volume. So I will do some camera flippity flopping and we'll try to take a look inside, flip through the whole book, and you can see what you think. All right, here's a sample comic book to give you the size proportions. This was I think it's a 1.5 up, and then they would shrink it down to make it into comic book art to print it out in comics. Um, we've got we've got these beautiful end pages. The end pages on the other end are different. So that's really cool. I like the color, little color splash of the red of his face there, of his airplane there. Classic inset. Insets are something that shows up all over this comic, all over these pages from the comic of this Joe Kubert work. I'm kind of thinking of these insets as kind of a standard Joe Kubert approach. Got just a very simple table of contents. It's interesting to note that the story from Star Spangled War Stories 144 is penciled by Neal Adams and inked by Joe Kubert. I could not tell that it was Neal Adams when I looked at it. And then penciled and inked by Russ Heath, the last story in here, Rain Above, Mud Below. But I feel like some of it was inked by Kubert. We'll see that. So it's nice they include the covers of all of the stories they have in here. And this one must have had a, whatchamacallit, the logo up here, and you can see the glue where the logo fell off. Nice. When you look at these larger pieces of art, you appreciate the lettering more. And this is really nice lettering here. Closer, closer, the hangman tightens his noose around the enemy ace. I can't remember if the hangman is French or British or even American. He's on the side of the Allies against the enemy ace, but he's one of the recurring characters. Very symbolic. I guess this is the god of war here. It's kind of the whole series, I guess, is about honor and how tough you have to be to take in war. And World War II might be the war that ended that sense of honor, but it was there at least, one hopes, in the world of the Flying Aces. So one thing I noticed is that all of these have little punch holes in them. And I don't know if that was to hold them down for the printers or something they did later to preserve, to keep the file copies. Although I've heard that DC used to destroy original art. So somehow none of this original art got destroyed, and maybe this was after they stopped destroying original art, or maybe Joe Kubert, who I think worked in the office, made sure his artwork wasn't destroyed. I love panels like that. And sequentially, Joe Kubert, does everything. He has just all kinds of tricks to take advantage of sequential nature of panels. This is an amazing drawing, and I'm not sure if they also used it for a cover. We'll see in the back that that there was a cover sketch that looked kind of like this. Death whispers, death screams. All of these were written by Robert Kanigher, who did some amazing work at DC Comics over the years. He also did some cheesy, silly stuff. Great angle there. Just the drama. I mean, I'll be pointing it out over and over. The way he can use panels to create drama and pacing. When you think about it, the amount of work that was put into these pages back when comics were just considered junk, just considered something for little kids to read and throw away. But someone like Joe Kubert really cared, especially maybe when he was doing a story like this. This, I think I might not have said, this was the only war comic that kind of fascinated me as a kid, and I got little glimpses of it. Some of these stories were, I think, reprinted in various places. Love that. It's kind of a sketchy style, but it just does the job. I love the Joe Kubert sketchy style overall anyway. So they let us know that there are 2 pages in this book that aren't from the original art. So you can tell just by the clean white. They just reproduced the black and white art here so you would be able to see the cover of this issue. And so they have complete issues here. It's particularly amazing considering how much art got destroyed back then that all these complete issues exist. There's a huge area with the, I guess you call it zipatone or duotone, I'm not sure the difference, but they would have had, the artist, in this case Joe Kubert, would have had to cut it all out. I think Kubert did all his own inking, but he also did all his own lettering, I believe. And often the lettering is deeply integrated into the story. The face of the hangman. So in this case, the hangman rescues our friend Baron von Richthofen, I think his name is. I guess he's a prisoner at this point. See, the hammer of hell is not a devil after all. Oh, but he is but a man. So maybe the hangman is a French pilot. And we never really get to see the hangman's face. I don't think. Even though this episode's called The Face of the Hangman. Now here I can see little bits of blue. I don't see that on most of these pages, do I? I guess there's a little bit of blue there. So sometimes people worked in blue pencil, which did not show up in the cameras that printers used to create the plates. There were some areas where I could see, I can faintly see erased pencil lines for lines that he drew to do the lettering. Again, fantastic use of the panels. And I mentioned that he loves these insets, and it really, I think, because if you're just looking at a plane, it kind of, you lose the humanity. So he does a lot of close-ups of faces. Another issue from Star Spangled number 141. It strikes me that Kubert's covers really aren't like anyone else's. They have just a different, like this one's very linear, everything's up and down. They just have a different vibe than anyone else's covers. They pop out at me. There's a face. The Bull. Enemy Ace meets the Bull. It's kind of funny having a comic where the allies are the bad guys. But, World War I was different than World War II. Anyway, it's a little easier to have sympathy for the, quote, enemy. In fact, my grandfather lived in Germany and was a He was in the army. He was a telegraph operator in World War II. He died before I was born, and I have not had any stories of his World War II. World War I adventures passed down to me. In World War II, he was driven out of Germany by the Nazis, but that's an entirely different thing. So yeah, tons of this. Well, in some places, a lot of the Zipatone. So if you had the actual original art, you would literally see the edge of the Zipatone, and you could run your finger across it. Okay, this is a fantastic sequence. Closing in on the eyeballs, then we've got this scene, then we've got them walking apart, and we don't see the bull cheat. I think that's the bull. We don't see the bull cheat, we just see the other guy fall in a bang. And that's just a really good way to tell that story, tell that scene. And Kubert does great fight scenes. Like Kirby, he knew what he was doing when he did a fight scene. Yeah, again, a cover that just seems different to me than anything else you would see at DC. And these stories in general just have a whole different vibe than what else you'd be seeing at DC during this 12-cent era. There's a similar pose from there to there. Very intense. And these do not need color. I have to check out the color versions again. Love the way he does that face there. Murderer, you killed my brother, murderer. Is it the sister of the hangman? Does she become the harpy? Yeah, that's just very intense there. Oh, and look at that. It's very minimal, but it's like, I turn, dive, climb, and no avail. And there she is, the vengeful woman who wants to vengeance of her. The vengeance is a harpy. I find these minimalistic panels as powerful as the very detailed panels, actually. Oh, there's the hangman. He's not dead then. Or maybe this is a flashback. Mount your plane, Von Hammer, or I will kill you where you stand. I know at some point Kubert became the editor of the war books and maybe of the kind of Tarzan Edgar Rice Burroughs books too. I don't know if he was editor at this point. There's no introduction in this volume, although usually when they do have introductions in these artist editions, they aren't as informative as I would like. I'd say that's one of the flaws. This cover is interesting, both, again, a very unique looking cover, much, I don't know, messier and crazier looking than a normal DC cover. But it also says special issue story illustrated by Alex Toth. And first of all, we don't get to see the Alex Toth story. It's probably not an NMEA story. It's probably some other Star Spangled War story. But also, I'm surprised that during this 12-cent era, so maybe the mid-60s, readers would know who Alex Toth was enough that DC, who didn't even promote artists that much, would put his name on the cover. So maybe more people did know about Alex Toth than I realized. But this is although they mentioned Alex Toth on the cover, I think readers would have been more excited about Neal Adams. And this is the Neal Adams story inked by Joe Kubert. But it feels so much more like a Kubert story than Adams, including this kind of layout, which seems like a typical Kubert layout. Now, maybe Adams is trying to do Kubert, but then trying to outdo him here or there, like with this upside down scene with a little up the nose action. It would be so great to see the pencils before Kubert laid down the inks. The inking seems a little bit heavier than he does over his own pencils. It might be my imagination, but otherwise it just looks like a Joe Kubert comic. And we've got the insets, maybe not do we have any circle insets? So I feel like Adams had looked very closely at how Kubert did this series. And maybe these panels would have been smaller in Kubert, but it does seem like something Kubert would have done. I don't know. I guess it would take a close analysis of Kubert and Adam Neal Adams to be sure. But it does seem. I mean, maybe it's a little different from what Kubert would do, but it seems much more in the Kubert realm than in the Neal Adams realm, where you might get more jagged panels and other crazy stuff like that. But clearly, Kubert was not gonna change the look while he inked Neal Adams. I sort of see a connection between Neal Adams and what's his name? The guy who did Terry and the Pirates and Steve Canyon. Brain farting on camera. So then I think, oh wait, is this still the Neal Adams one? I guess so. Man, it just looks so much like Kubert. Look at that, that's intense. And we do have a circular cutout over here too. Is this still Neal Adams? That you can sort of see Neal Adams in that there. So that's a cool background effect there too. I think the only trace I can see is maybe there's not as many small panels as Kubert would do. And then here is this Russ Heath story, and I'm not sure why they added it in here. Maybe they just wanted a little more Enemy Ace and they couldn't find other complete stories. But, you know, this first page looks to me like it was inked by Kubert. Kubert? And then this clearly is not inked by Kubert. So I assume this was inked by Russ Heath. Yeah. Is there? I thought there was another page that looks Kubert here to me on this panel, but could be my imagination. You know, compared to that inking style to that inking style. And yeah, and this panel here, it's almost like Kubert came in and inked a few panels. Could be my imagination. Then at the back they have just a few odds and ends, a cover from Sergeant Rock, which I guess has Enemy Ace on it. I wish they had there is a Neal Adams Batman meets Enemy Ace page. And so here's some cover roughs. I might try to insert pictures of ones that neither of these finished covers are in the book. It says cover sketches of Showcase Comics 57 and 58, the first two appearances of Enemy Ace. Here's a color version of a cover idea which was not used exactly but is something in this book, so I'll try to insert that cover here. Issue number 142. And this is for a different idea for 140. So I've learned that usually the artist had to give 3 different cover sketches and then the editor would choose. And this page, this cover here, looks like that page that we've already looked at. And I wonder if it was also used for a cover or if he then used it for his big splash page, the guy saluting as he goes down, which is just such a dramatic and distressing kind of image. And here's a very loose and hard to take in cover from number 46, which is not one in here, 1969. But you can see even on the cover sketches, he writes in what might be the dialogue. And then for some reason, they're just giving us this double page spread of fire hair, which I think it says comes from Tomahawk. So maybe it was a backup story. Tomahawk 131. Fire hair promotional art. While not related to Enemy Ace, we could not resist publishing this beautiful 2-page spread by Kubert. So maybe by the late 60s, they'd stopped destroying art. One might hope. So there you go. I love these artist editions, and I actually have quite a lot of them. And some of them are even bigger I'm not sure. It was very hard to just film this one, but I'll find a way, and I hope to do maybe once a week or every other week something from my collection of art books. It won't always be artist editions, but definitely artist editions will be a big part of the mix. So I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Read more comics.